Oh, all right. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Another episode of the MVP Cast. My MVP guest today is Rev Deb, and she is an integrative energy practitioner. Welcome, Rev Deb. Thanks for joining me, and let the audience know a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Josh. I am happy to be here. Well, a little bit about me. I am a performer. I'm in the entertainment in the world of positive media and a speaker. And you are correct. I am an integrative energy practitioner, and I specialize in the realm of energy, which is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And that covers the gambit from personal to professional to even spiritual development. Everything is energy. So, therefore, we got to learn how to basically align that energy and understand how those frequencies that they generate are working with us or against us. And so that's really the hub of my career as a performer and my career as a speaker and obviously as a practitioner. So that's the gambit. It all revolves around how we work in the realm of energy and the idea that we will never ever outperform those things that we believe to be true about ourselves.
Yes, that is very true. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm in the mix of reading The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Not sure if you've listened to that one or read it. I definitely recommend it. It's a great read or audio listen as I do. But the point is, you know, I never cease to amaze myself in when I read books like that or just, dive into a different realm of, energy and the power of the mind and what we are capable of, just in a natural sense, right? It's just a matter of uncovering our potential and tapping into that power that we have within ourselves. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure you as an energy practitioner probably are very proficient in helping people uncover that, right?
Over time, I become what I call very expert in doing what instant breakthroughs with people to help them actually overcome things very, very quickly. And in fact, kind of the first conversation I might have with a potential client is what I call an instant breakthrough session to help them actually understand, gain clarity of what's happening, and experience that feeling of actually that aha that takes them over to the other side. And that's different than a permanent breakthrough because an instant breakthrough doesn't necessarily mean, even though they may understand what's happening now and they have a better shot at perhaps not repeating or duplicating a pattern, the permanent breakthrough comes with a little bit more process and a little bit more work. So as much as I'd
Hmm.
love to say just go like that and it's all done, it's like, yeah, no, we're a little more complex as an organism than that. However,
Hmm.
what's really amazing is that we can shift and change so quickly. And it's funny that people put it off and put it off and put it off. And I find often that people that I end up working with have gotten themselves in so much pain one way or another that
Hmm.
they've literally like they're turning to someone like me because they just don't know what else to do. And it's like, man, once it's done and they've gotten through some stuff, they're like, why didn't I do this so much sooner? And I really
Hmm.
wish if I had one thing I could shift about my personal experience in my business thus far, it would be to have people have a conversation with me or someone like me before they find themselves in that much pain.
Hmm.
But then that's that argument of like, okay, well, do people need to be in a lot of pain to really realize that they need to do something different? And I guess the answer is, at least so far, the evidence has pointed at, with some exception, the evidence has pointed at, yes, they need to be in just enough pain so that they'll make that decision or do something that's a little bit, I guess, left of center. Because I'm
Hmm.
I'm I'm not maybe the most traditional practitioner, in that, well, what's integrative energy? What's energy? It's all kind of a little woo woo or out there or spiritual or whatever. Some people just, they don't know what to think about it. And yet,
Hmm.
when you get back into even science, there's huge support in the idea that energy is everywhere. And that's exactly what we are. We are entirely made up of energetic frequencies. And if we can understand what frequencies we're running on, we can align with anything. We can bring ourselves to a whole nother level. And again, it won't happen like that, but it will happen much faster than people actually realize.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I like how you brought up the whole pain level. Oftentimes it takes a certain level of pain. That threshold has to really be pressed against for people to take action. And I hope that, part of the show and our community that we're growing here is to kind of empower people to take action before there's a high level of pain, because it's again, it's like preventative things, right? All things in life, if you take care of them, including our bodies and our relationships, they preserve a higher longevity, or a longer life cycle, if you will. But oftentimes, it's kind of the mindset of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Well, why wait till it's broke, right, when you can prevent it from breaking?
Right. Or from my perspective, a little bit too, is the idea that, everybody's in the gut mindset going on, so it's all about the mindset. It's all about the mindset. And I don't disagree. It is very much about the mindset. However, how you
Hmm.
feel about what you think actually usurps how great you might think about it. It doesn't matter how many
Hmm.
times you might say something or write something down or affirm it. And as a matter of fact, affirmations can become very confrontational and can actually work against you if your feelings around what you are affirming are not in alignment. So there's a very
Hmm.
huge emotional component that honestly, sometimes I just get a little ticked at the whole idea of everybody talking about mindset and nobody talking about the feelings underneath that, because it seems that whether you're male or female, it seems that being emotional is never okay, right? So guys will
Hmm.
think, oh, I can't be emotional because real men aren't emotional, and I'm paraphrasing, but you can just take the
Hmm.
threads of what I'm saying. But women can be, and
Hmm.
it's like, well, wait a minute, no, because if a woman is seen as emotional, well, that's not actually a good thing. Like, women being overly
Hmm.
emotional, that's like, oh, no, 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 that's not good. And we get
Right.
we get that time of the month kind of stuff thrown at us and all that good stuff. So it's neither side of us, male or female, we're not really allowed to connect to our emotions in a way that society says, yeah, this is great, this is healthy. And as a matter of fact,
Hmm.
we're taught at a very early age how to disconnect from all of that. And so part of my quest and why I love music and acting and writing and those things, and finding other ways to bring this to the table for people, is because that does provoke emotion. It does help people to feel. And that's where the magic actually happens, is when the emotions can align with the desires, and then the thoughts can then support it.
Hmm. Yeah, that is very impactful the way you said that too. Um, so yeah, I appreciate that. I wanna go into some questions here, Deb, if you don't mind. I would say, along with, obviously streamlining you as the MVP guest today, my first question is what is your mission as an entrepreneur? I know you kind of just, a little bit dabbled into that, but is there anything that you can elaborate, specifically as an entrepreneur and that mission for yourself?
Absolutely. I have a mission at this point, before me, that, as much as I've gone, oh my gosh, how am I going to get there? I don't know. It's very much about, I've been supporting this idea of having, like, and this is a big number, having like 300 million members of a consciousness club, if you will, with people that are like waking up every day and literally going into their day creating the reality that they want to live. So the willingness to understand how to let go of the past and how to not, I mean, sure, don't run in front of a car on the road. Good thing to hang on to. Don't put your hand over open flame. Good thing to hang on to. But the argument that you had with your relative 16 years ago, maybe not a good thing to hang on to, or the idea
Hmm.
of a self impression you were given about yourself as a child that's now having a belief system that's running in the background constantly, maybe not such a great thing to hang on to. And yet most people, when they're going about creating their day, that's exactly what they're doing. They're looking back here somewhere to find the evidence, like, oh, this looks familiar, this reminds me of this, and when this happened, that's what took place, so that's what I need to expect. And it's like that immediately keeps us stuck and in the past and doesn't allow us to move forward. So the idea of a
Hmm.
consciousness club is basically people coming together in a way that allows them to be free of that stuff, to be supported in being free, to be in a community that's really supporting that, so that the conversations can really exist about how to exist in this moment and move forward, and how to create the future that we would prefer to live in. Because I think people are incredibly powerful. I also think, though, that we are running in at a time when people don't necessarily feel particularly powerful. And so for me,
Hmm.
it's like this offset. And I know 300 million is a large number, but I look at it like at some point, it's like the hundredth monkey effect, right? At some point, you gain enough momentum that it just goes boom, 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 like popcorn. So that is really my mission. I would like to serve this lifetime and this planet and as many people as I possibly can in waking up to their own personal power, and
Hmm.
then moving into creating what I would call a new world, from a consciousness standpoint, not from a corporate or political standpoint, but from a consciousness standpoint.
That's
So,
awesome. And I'm listen, I'm 100% supportive on that 300 million. You tell me how I can help you, because I and think in very much the same multiplying way. My whole thing was, hey, if I can get a group of 1,000 entrepreneurs that are fired up, and they can each do 1,000 of themselves, fire up another 1,000, we're at 1 million people, right? So I mean, doing that, and you're at 300 million. I mean, like you said, you get enough momentum, and it's a runaway train
mhm,
that is not going to be stopped.
mhm.
So kudos to you. And, I'm always of the mindset to go as big as possible. So you just made me think that my target's too low. So thank you for that.
I don't think your target is too low. I think what will happen is you're somebody I've gotten to know you a little bit over time, and you're somebody that when you hit that, and there's no doubt you will, you'll just 10x it. That's who you are. So I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that. I also like to generally, I like to make targets that I really know that are probably not reasonable or realistic per se, with the intention. It's like if you're shooting for the stars but you hit the moon, you went really freaking far, so it's
Right,
okay.
right.
Um so yeah, 300 mil, man. I'm not gonna go that high, but I'm gonna now rephrase it. I want to do 100 mil. The million is out, it's not enough. We're going for 100 mil. So
100 million. All right.
thanks on that. Thank you on that, Deb. I appreciate it. Next question I want to segue into is and this we probably kind of already touched on it, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. Is what gets you fired up and leads you to your passion?
Ah, boy. I have a
I
great
know that's a loaded question
That's a
there, huh?
loaded question. It is, especially these days. I have great faith. You'll have to excuse my cat's going to wander across, so you might see a tail because whenever I'm on there, see, whenever I'm on anything, she likes to join in. But you know, I've come to a place in time in my life and in my world where I've been looking a lot at what's really happening, beyond all the
Hmm.
noise, because there's an awful lot of noise. And especially since the
Hmm.
whole COVID thing started, and just, my background, I've always had media as part of the world that I live in. And my background has been, also, I've had my own talk radio show before podcasts, and
Nice.
done, all the call in talk, and it was called Global Lightwave, your wake up call from the political to the metaphysical we explore. So I've always been really fascinated to know what's really going on in the world, not what everybody wants to tell us, but what's really going on. And I find it quite fascinating that it can be really hard to figure that part out. And
Hmm.
because there is so much misinformation and there's so many agendas out there. And I mean, agendas are not bad. We all have them. This show has an agenda right now, whatever it be. My mission is an agenda, so is yours. So agendas are not a bad thing. However, not every agenda may be for the best intention. So what gets
Hmm.
me fired up these days is paying attention at that level. The trusted sources that I have, and none of them are traditional news media at all. I just don't look there. Um, and and figuring out a way to find the possibility inside of those things, and put that call to action together of just saying, okay, if we don't like what's happening, if we don't like what they're doing to the air, if we don't like what they're doing to the water, if we don't like, what's happening, um, then it comes very much back to we the people, and the fact
Hmm.
that we the people have the power. Because in at the end of it all, there are way more of us than there are of quote unquote them, whoever them might be it the corporations, be it big pharma, be it politics. There's still way more of us than there are of them. And if we can find a way to come into some place of acceptance where it's okay for people to have other opinions, it's okay. It's okay for people to have different beliefs. My two things where I draw the line is this: with harm to none, and do unto others as I would do unto myself, as I'd like them to do unto me. Those are my golden rules. Those are what I live by. And if that's who you
Hmm.
are, then I don't care if you've got a rock that you want to say is the source of all. That's fine by me, because it's not hurting anybody. And if that allows
Hmm.
you to show up and be the best possible person you can be, then that's great. So I get to a place of just looking at how can we come into a conversation where we can actually find community at this level, where we can actually come into being the best that we can be at this higher level, so that we can start to
Hmm.
decide collectively, what do we really want to have happening here? And be able to say, and because we have the dollars too, right? This is the world we live in. Money is the rate of exchange. So okay, if we don't like the fact that they're doing things that are poisoning the environment right now, and that's poisoning us too, by the way. It's not just ooh, save the forests. It's like, no, it's actually poisoning us. um, then then maybe we can band together and say, okay, so we're not going to support the supporters of those things. And that may be inconvenient, but then the question becomes, well, where's the inconvenience? Is it that right now I can't get this particular product because it's made by that manufacturer, and that manufacturer supports this that I will not believe in, so therefore I will not go there? Or the inconvenience of, crap, the soil has gotten so toxic we can't even grow organic anymore, because that's some of the
Hmm.
stuff that's happening. So those are the things that get me really, really fired up. And the reality is, my vision has always been like, I truly believe peace is possible on this planet and in my lifetime. But I only believe that that's possible if enough people have peace in their hearts. And the only time that people have peace in their hearts is when they truly, truly realize like how magical and magnificent and miraculous they actually are, and how capable they are of moving outside of these ideas of being inadequate and unworthy and undeserving and broken, and coming into a place of realizing that they are co-creating the world that they're living in right now, right this minute. We're
Hmm.
all doing it whether we realize it or not. If we can come into that realization, just imagine how powerful we really could be. And
Yeah.
it's not about violence. It's not about moving into some kind of civil unrest. It's not about war. None of those things work. They never have, and they're not going to. It's about finding a different way to come together as a community, and to decide, okay, this is what we are going to do. And when just enough is, and I don't know what that number is, but when just enough are able to have that level of communication and tolerance and acceptance of one another, then imagine, utopia is possible at that point, as
Hmm.
opposed to what I would consider right now to be looming, this sort of dystopic idea of life at this moment in time. Because we're not moving in
Yeah.
harmony. We have a lot of unrest. We have a lot of despair. We have a lot of people feeling very, very alone and concerned and afraid and powerless. And so I
Hmm.
want them to feel powerful, because it's us. It's up to us. We got the opposable thumbs. We're in charge. We got to do stuff.
Right. Exactly. Well, and one of the key things that I heard you say in that is one word: peace. And for those that are watching the video aspect of this, it's right behind you in your backdrop, which I love, by the way. Did you paint that yourself?
No, this is actually a piece that I found when I was looking. I'm like, how can it? You've seen a few backdrops that I have. I have my studio. I have some other things too. This is actually something I found online and ordered and was really excited about. It actually has love on the other side. So it's like, ooh, that'll
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
isn't one of my
Yeah.
paintings, but yes, I do paint stuff somewhat similar.
Yeah. So the whole aspect of peace, it brings me back um to the whole idea, like if we think about Facebook before it originated, right? There was a MySpace, right?
Mhm.
Um and then there was Facebook. And I mean, I think the original concept of Facebook was to bring community together, right? Um but it also gave people an outlet to just be more negative, right? To be hateful. I like to call it, I don't know what's the word to call it, but a means to bully without repercussions, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
To be an offender, and not have anything, against them. And so I think that, like you said, to create a reality of people, I like you simply put it, the consciousness club, 300 million. I mean, we need to create our own Facebook, Rev Deb. What do you think? We'll call it the Consciousness Club, and it's
Consciousness Club Facebook group.
very
There you
strict rules. If there's negativity, I mean, you're banned. We'll lock them out like they did Trump.
Right. Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, Facebook is a whole other animal and entity. I think it's an incredibly robust, amazing marketing engine that has zero respect for privacy at all, because we are the commodity on Facebook. And I don't mean that in a I'm not being insulting to it at all. As entrepreneurs, it's something that we all utilize to some degree.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of stuff happening in social media now that they don't even know the ramifications of how it's affecting our brains, our IQs, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we connect. Like they don't even know. We are in such unknown territory now because every like, every comment, everything is getting filtered through with artificial intelligence. And then boom, we're being categorized and then we're being fed stuff. And it's not even stuff we're asking for. It's stuff that's just showing up because it's like, ooh, you're the type of person who would like this. And
Hmm.
for a lot of people that's like, oh, let me go, it's squirrel. You know, I have
Yeah.
dogs, so it's squirrel. And away they go. And I mean, you can't dispute it's a very intense, incredible marketing engine. um I don't know often what to think about that because I do see that it's also been a very it can be very divisive in its own right as well. And it has I there has never existed such a separation and rift and barrier that now exists just to here in the United States between people. And the idea of them
Mhm.
just going off on social media and going off about and attacking and getting and ranting and raving and friendships have expired, like real friendships, not just friend me on Facebook, I've never met you, but hey, it's nice to meet you. I mean, serious
Mhm.
lifetime friendships have broken up on social media. And those are things that they kind of make me feel a little sad about what's happening to us, that we can allow this to be. And for generations that have grown up now where this is just the reality of the world they've been born into, you know is the idea of privacy even a thought to them at all? you know
Right.
so it's like, that's what I said, I told you I like to see what's going on in the world. So these are all things that I get kind of fascinated by, and I go down the rabbit hole. And sometimes I wish that I didn't, but you know it's good to know.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, yeah, we appreciate that. And I mean, on a serious level, I think that there could be, I don't think that Facebook is too big to combat. I think that there will be another platform that can, make a shift and create a more positive light, in a positive realm. Because I think that that's one of our biggest things is like you said, with the environment, of the toxins, like just community wise, where there's too much toxicity in the air and in our message, and people feed into that. And like you said earlier in this conversation, you know, with the masses, you know, that's going to rule the majority, right?
Mhm.
So if the majority are programmed or conditioned to be that way, right, then that's the only way they can be, right? And it's up to, you know, leaders like you and I to really create a shift, and try to transition that masses into more of a positive aspect, a positive light that can create change in the movement, that has to eventually come at some point, right? You
Right.
know, I mean, if you look at in history, any of the great leaders, whether it's Jesus, Gandhi, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. These people created movements, because they believed, and they stuck to that, and they did not stop.
Mhm.
They relentlessly went after, you know, their word and their mission, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, so
And
that's kind of
the very
that's kind
last
of
thing
where we're at.
the very last thing that Gandhi did with his life was forgive the person who shot him. You know,
Right.
I mean, how
Yeah,
profound
exactly.
is that? You know, and yet
Yeah.
social media and virtual reality. I mean, I was just watching an interview. I watch Russell Brand. He's on YouTube. He's got his own channel, and he's become this really interesting spokesperson. He does a podcast as well. That's really fascinating, and he brings on some amazing people. And I really like his perspective because it's actually very neutral, but it's also very poignant. And he's brought on some subjects that are quite fascinating about, well, what does any of this really mean? And he brought on this idea of all the dating apps that have gone through the roof now because of COVID, and how the news is now, you know, the your CNNs and your Fox and all of that are reporting about all these love stories that are happening on these virtual dates and giving virtual dating tips. And it's like, okay, well, understood, you know, we're human beings, we need to reach out and connect one another and all that kind of stuff, and some of that's been just taken off the table. And how are we coping? Get all of that. But there's that other side too, which is the question mark of how are we being conditioned now? Why are they teaching us the techniques on how to have a relationship virtually and what it means to become intimate virtually? Are we truly being brought into this reality where this is just going to continue to be how it is? Because it's very damaging to us as human beings. I mean, our rate of depression is through the roof. Our rate of suicides are through the roof, you know.
Hmm.
And and so I don't mean to go off in that topic. It's just when you look at what I
Peace.
look at, you know, energy and what that means and how to be successful in this world, these are all points that to me are very important to understand. How can you function inside of this framework, and what's real and what's not? And a lot of people will talk to me about, well, how are you dealing with COVID and this and that? And one of the things that I've done is I've just said, look, I do what I intuitively feel okay with, and that's it.
Hmm.
I don't do what if I feel iffy about it, I don't care what's going on, as much fun as it might be or whatever. I'm just not putting myself in that position. I'm intuitively doing what it is that I feel is the right thing for me to do. And that's the thing I think we all need to get to, is back in touch with our own intuition. These drivers that we've always had, I call it the emotional guidance system, and we were all born with it, but not very many of us know how to turn it on or use it. And when you use your emotional
Hmm.
guidance system, you will always move towards that thing that feels better. And when you do that, you're on track in your life. It's not always going to be perfect, but it will always feel better. And that's the most essential thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. You know, one of the quotes that I had, pulled the other day that kind of follows what you just said was, you know, someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. You know, and again, tapping into your inner monologue of what you know, feels right to you, right? You know, that intuition, and really going with that, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you can't trust yourself, or invest in yourself, like, who can you, right?
Right. It's very true. I have
Awesome.
a saying I didn't come up with it. I can't remember where I heard it though. I've been using it for a very long time. And it's been something that's been very helpful in my life. And it goes along with exactly what you were saying. And it's like, what you think of me is none of my business.
Hmm.
It's it's a very, if people really think about that, what you think of me is none of my business. That doesn't mean I'm giving myself permission to act like an idiot, or be
Hmm.
rude or whatever. Like I said, treat others the way I would like to be treated. That's very important to me.
Hmm.
What it does mean for me, though, in my life, is it means that it releases me of the fear or the idea that I can't say that or I can't do that because they might think this or they might think that, and it's like,
Hmm.
you can't live your life like that. And one of my greatest concerns about social media is that it's creating a generation of, and a next generation of people who are concerned about that stuff. They're far too concerned
Oh
about
yeah.
what people are going to think of them and what the comments are and all that. And we have to let go of that because that's so
Yeah.
artificially induced.
Yeah. I think for some folks it becomes like a drug. There's a serious level of addiction
Mhm.
that comes with it. So it's unfortunate, but hey, we're going for the 300 million club, Deb.
That's right.
So
Consciousness
let's
Club.
focus on that. We're going to focus on that. My last question before we wrap up here, if you want to share, is what is one thing that you would say has accelerated your earnings, in this pandemic or this period of time with coronavirus and the uncertainty that exists.
I think that, I mean, I will say this, regardless of what one may think about the pandemic we're in at this moment in time, I think it's brought a lot of gifts to the table. I think it has grounded people back into the idea that, spending time with family is actually pretty cool. Being with your kids is actually, that's something really. I have a dear friend that has twins, and I kind of call them my babies. They're sort of my adopted niece and nephew, and they're adorable children. And as she said, we were talking, she said her and her husband at one point, because they're in the entertainment world and stuff, and they were like, we would take in the daycare and then they'd go to after that, and we drop them off in the morning, pick them up at 7 o'clock in the evening, not even think about it. Now we couldn't even imagine doing that, and I think
Hmm.
that's huge. I think that's beautiful. So I think the family dynamic, and I think that that relationships overall on that level, and the idea of neighbor knowing neighbor, which is something that hasn't necessarily existed in our modern world. There's more of that, and I'm very grateful for that. I think nature was a big winner because she got to rest. Who knew that coral reefs would recede themselves? Nobody knew that
Hmm.
until the cruise ships stopped running into areas where they were constantly going. And yes, it has affected the economies, and there's things that there's definitely fallout from this, and I understand that. However, who knew that these reefs could come back to life the way that they do? So I think that we have an opportunity to utilize this from a very positive standpoint. And um, and I think that it's also brought people to a place of in some ways with difficulty, but having to also get to know themselves a bit better and look at their own
Hmm.
values and their own ways of living. It's made everybody slow down, and
Hmm.
I think that that's actually a huge positive. Yes, there are definitely other things that have gone on that are not. um, However, for me, what has allowed me to excel at this time are exactly those things. It has brought me to a point where I have really begun to understand how important my mission and my purpose is, right? And I have to speak for me, how precious
Hmm.
relationships in my life are, um, and also how deep some of the wounding that I've had in my life has gone, because it wasn't about being busy, and it wasn't about getting out in the world. I've worked virtually for years anyway, so it wasn't so much of a change for me in that regard. But it wasn't, about running around and being in traffic and going to networkings and doing all those things that I did, or hosting events, or speaking or performing or doing gigs. Like, all of that stopped. And it brought me to a place of like, okay, well, I had to kind of stop too. And
Hmm.
and that's given me a much greater sense of self, of service, of dedication to that service. I have also gone through a huge levels of frustration as to understand how to bring this service to the world where it's really accessible. That's one of the challenges. So I think it's just brought me personally back to a point of, in some ways, rededicating myself to what I've always believed my mission in this life on this planet at this time has always been, but it's kind of removed the excuses. It's like I'm looking at things and going, I can't look away. I cannot look away. I actually have to say the stuff that I'm saying. And, a couple of years ago, I didn't look away, but I probably wouldn't have been so straight up candid about it. I
Hmm.
would have been a little less outspoken about it, because maybe
Hmm.
that would affect the way my business would grow or something. It wasn't acceptable. And now it's just, it doesn't matter to me if take what's true for you, let go of the rest. You do not have to agree with me. All I want people to do is truly to just get back to their own sense of self, their own sense of empowerment, their own sense of intuition, to build that relationship with self. I call it stewardship of the self. Then you can have stewardship of other people. Then you can have stewardship of the planet. And that's what I think we're all here to do. I don't think it's about driving the big fancy cars or living in the biggest house. I do certainly don't think it's about a
Hmm.
multi-billion or multi-trillion dollar company. I really don't. I don't think that's our future. I think if we continue to
Yeah.
head in that direction, we're running into more and more and more problems. And it would certainly be nice to see that we don't have to collectively get in that much pain before we decide to
Hmm.
change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I like the way you said that, and I couldn't agree with you more on that. I'm a very simple person. I mean, I'm not about fancy cars and a lavish lifestyle. I mean, I obviously I think we all like the nicer things, but it comes to be said that that's not, at the end of the day, that's not what's important. It's our connections and our family. And I want to make a point with what you had just previously said. When we can internalize and really dive into ourselves and create a better version of ourselves and be able to deliver that, then that gives us the empowerment to empower others to do the very same thing, which again, it kind of comes back to this whole conversation of empowerment and the consciousness club, right? Of giving people maybe that integrative energy, right?
Right.
And just getting
Exactly.
them off the ground, right? So
Letting this
so yeah.
conversation not be such a weird, strange, different, unusual conversation. Let it become a much more traditional conversation. I can't tell you, I had a show concept and we actually shot the first episode and then other things started to happen. And so it's been shelved for right now. But it was about cooking healthy food and sitting down around the table with certain people and talking about the future together, envisioning what the future could look like, because how rare is that to be able to sit around a table with people, dinner or breakfast or whatever, and talk
Mhm.
about what we're creating, not what happened and where I was and who said what, but here's who we are in the future. Here's what we're creating in the future. I believe that we have to start having those kinds of conversations, and the minute that those start to become a lot more normalized, the more we're going to see shifts in ways that we can't even imagine, because Providence says where there was no way there will be a way. We don't have to
Mhm.
figure out that part. We just need to show up and do our part in creating that conversation. And that's hopefully what I do for the well, it's not even hope, it's what I do for my clients when I work with them, is to help them get that level of clarity so they can have that level of conversation. And wouldn't it be nice for us to be able to do that as a community, so it's no longer weird or strange or you're that way, or I don't know, conspiracist. You hear a lot of that being thrown around these days. And it's like, and it's been sort of demonized. It's crazy. It's like, maybe not. Maybe it's not. It's like, what if? I
Yeah.
always look at anything, and I know it's time to go. I always look at anything this way. What if just part of this might be true? What if this really were possible? What if this could work? What if this is actually happening? What does this really mean? I find that to be a very key thing in my life that allows me to
Hmm.
stay positive. It allows me to see potential. It allows me to see possibility, even if the what ifs I'm asking are not particularly comfortable. And maybe there's stuff I don't
Mhm.
want to see. But if I allow myself to entertain those thoughts, then what happens for me are other thoughts that layer on top of that that can be potential solutions. And
Mhm.
that's where we got to go, because I don't have all the answers by any means. However, I'm willing to start the conversation. I'm willing to lead the conversation. I'm cool with that. You know, there's minds out there far more brilliant than mine that I would love to have chime in on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like where you mentioned that comfortability. We don't grow unless we're outside our comfort zone.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just I don't know any other way to put that. Very simply said. One thing I want to kind of mention too. This has kind of been on my theme for what you were just saying. You know, have the mindset it's not over until you win, right? So, the mission that you're going after that could be achieved, and we can all win. It's not just your personal win. It can be a very communicative win, for everybody. So I do thank you, for your time, Rev Deb, and I want you to maybe have some final thoughts and let the people know how they can reach out or connect with you, and that sort of thing.
Sure. And thank you. It's been really a blast to have this conversation, and we could probably talk for a heck of a lot longer. But it's been really fun. And final thoughts. You know, I I would offer this idea that I think it's time for all of us just to take a breath every once in a while, just to stop what you're doing, put the screens away, stop staring at all this information, take the earbuds out or turn Alexa off or whatever it takes to just be with yourself, even if it's just for
Hmm.
5 minutes a day to start, where everything else is off and you can just be with yourself and feel your feet on the ground and take some good deep breaths and just tune into your body. Get into your body, not just be here, but actually get into your body. You would be amazed, Josh, at how most people live here and out. They're not in their bodies. They have no idea. They don't know how they feel. And the reason why
Hmm.
so many people get sick and they have aches and pains and all of that is because every part of us has a voice. It just doesn't all speak English. And our body speaks the language of pain and discomfort and seizure and easing up and misalignment and injury and illness. And part of that is, yes, certainly the toxicity of some of the stuff that's going on in the world today, but it's also our own disconnection from our physical self, this beautiful home that we live in. And
Hmm.
that's, if there's one thing anybody can do, that's the simplest thing. It's stop, take a moment, be with yourself, be in silence, feel your feet on the ground, or better yet, feel your feet on the earth, no shoes, feel your feet on the earth. Take a few good deep breaths and just allow yourself to do that a couple of times a day. You will be amazed at how much more in tune you will be with everything. So that's a little simple thing I will give out to everybody, because everybody can do that. Everybody can take 5 minutes a day, and if they can't, then I absolutely challenge them to connect with me, because there's something going on that we desperately need to talk about. We need to have 5 minutes, even if it means getting up 5 minutes early. As far as getting in touch with me, I've been going through a lot of revamping and a lot of shifts and changes, and websites are up, websites are down. So I'm going to say, look me up on Facebook. You can find me in two places: Deborah, Deborah, Deborah Bishop's Place, and or join Deborah Bishop. And as a matter of fact, join Deborah Bishop is kind of where you can find me on social media. I will say I'm not massively active on social media, but I definitely check in and I will definitely connect with anybody who's there. And then I'm going to do something a little bit unheard of, but this is something I think is really important. I really want to connect with people who want to connect and who feel and resonate and think maybe there's something deeper to this conversation, whether it's about community or whether it's about themselves. So you can text
Hmm.
me or call me at 615 823 0073. So 615-823-0073. Yes, that is old school. I understand that. I still like to talk to people, because if I do
Yeah.
not hear their voice, then all I can hear is my voice reading their words, and that's subject to interpretation. I want to know what's going on. So text or call that number. I'm happy to talk with people, happy to do an instant breakthrough session with anybody who'd like to experience that and to serve in whatever way I can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Greatly appreciate that. So, you guys heard it from her first. Rev Deb, is out there, and we are on a mission. Collectively, we're on a mission, and we want you guys to join in our mission. And we're going for the Consciousness Club 300 mil. So, stay tuned. We'll be having some updates on that. Rev Deb, thank you again for your time. We greatly appreciate it. And until the next episode, you guys take care. Thanks a lot.